Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rory Holiday, the physiotherapist, back again with you. Today we're going to do a little bit of work on stretching muscles, releasing muscles at the front of the body, namely the quads, hip flexors, a little bit on the abdominals as well. We're going to be using a few pieces of equipment for this if you want to do the full program. We're going to need a mat. We're going to need ideally a foam roller. You can substitute this with something like a tennis ball. And we're also going to use a bit of resistance band or a belt. We're going to be using it to basically make our arms a little bit longer, which you'll see what I mean by in a moment or two. I'm also going to be using a chair. Now you can do this using the edge of a sofa, but a chair is absolutely fine. Right, okay, so we're going to start off using the foam roller. I use this quite a lot with my clients, or at least I advise it quite a lot. I think it's a really useful way of basically giving yourself a bit of a sports massage, and it just makes life so much easier to get those muscles loosened up if you prep them with a little bit of work with this. It's not the be all and end all for sure, but it's certainly a good place to start, particularly if you think muscles are a little bit tight. So we're going to be using a foam roller on the floor. Now, there's a progressive way of using this. We're going to start with an easy way, working through to something that's a little bit more challenging, and basically you do as much as you can do with this. We're going to start with the roller in front of us. And by the way, there's different types of rollers. This is a foam roller. Sometimes you'll find them a little bit more plasticky, a little bit harder. They're fine, but they're going to be a bit harder to start off with. So if you're new to this, try and get one of these slightly softer foam versions. We're going to pop the roller in front of us. We're going to pop our hands down onto the floor, working down onto the forearms, and then we're going to be entirely on our front, almost like we're in a plank, except our thighs are resting on the roller. And all I'm going to do is, using my arms, is I'm just going to gently roll forwards and backwards. There's a little bit of a core workout for those tummy muscles here. Try not to let your back sag, and you might find it a bit of a challenge to begin with to try and get all the way up and down from kneecaps to the front of the hip all in one go. So don't worry about trying to get all the way through there. Just do little portions. I'm just probably working over a 6-inch area, top of the thighs, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the roller down again, back toward my kneecaps, back down. So I'm working more mid-thigh down toward my kneecaps now. And I've got 50-50 weight bearing on the front of those thighs. My toes are just brushing the floor, nothing more. All of the work is coming really from my shoulders and maybe a bit from my tummy muscles. So we'll probably work on that for a couple of minutes. Now we're going to make it a little bit harder. We're going to go over onto one leg. Now we can transition. We can just lean 75% on my thigh facing you, my left thigh, and then maybe 25% on the other. So we're building up a bit more pressure on one side. But that's quite easy. We need to make it harder. We're going to take this roller now and we're going to bring it over so it's just in front of one thigh. I'll do it that side so you can see that a bit clearer. So this leg behind is not going to be having the roller in front of it. This is going to be controlling the movement. So I'm going to go down onto the roller again, down onto my forearms. So I've got one leg on the roller. Now this other leg is supporting, and I'm just going to have the toes of the supporting leg on the floor, and now I can push with those toes. I don't know if you can see that. If I lift that leg, push with the toes, push with the arms, push with the toes to come up, push with the arms to go back down. A little bit more work to do for the tummy muscles here because I'm only using one leg to support myself. Backwards and forwards, just working the front of that thigh. And again, we're doing a small portion there. I'm working from kneecap to mid-thigh. If I want to work the upper thigh, I'm going to crawl down a little bit on the roller, lift that opposite knee, go again, gently rolling. So I'm going to do this on the other side so you can see what I mean by that. I'm going to move that roller over, down onto my forearms. So this supporting leg, this leg here, toes on the floor, gently backwards and forwards. So I'm pushing with my toes, pushing away with my arms, using those tummy muscles just to support that bridge in between. And we're probably going to work a minute on that. And again, we're working kneecap to mid-thigh. And then I'm going to crawl down a little bit, sort of mid-thigh to up towards the hip there. Now a little bit of a variation here. You can turn the toes a little bit. So my leg that's on the roll, I'm turning my toes inward. You see how my body rotates towards you a little bit. I'm getting more towards the outer thigh. Excuse me. More towards the outer thigh. A few repetitions there. Turn inwards, more towards the inner thigh. Makes it a little bit harder. a bit more tender on that inner thigh actually. So just take it easy. Okay. All right, so let's say we've done a minute on each side there. We're going to ease off, have a little breather for a moment. One last little progression using the foam roller. Excuse me. We're going to be using the roller whilst putting the muscle on a bit of a stretch at the same time. So I'm going to do it on this side facing you most. We're going to get back down on the roller, but this time what we're going to do is bring this heel up towards your bum. Now we can either just work with that heel up toward the bum, okay, or if we're feeling quite adventurous, can we get a stretch on there and roller at the same time? It's a lot harder because we're having to use one arm, a little bit more work happening with the tummy muscles, not quite so easy, but it certainly gets in there. So that's end stage rollering for you. Take that one off. Okay, so let's put the roller to one side. So we've warmed up those muscles, we've loosened them up with the roller. We're now going to give them a little bit of a stretch. So the go-to stretch that I give people is side lying. Now, if you are quite tight in the thigh muscles, or if you've got short arms, you might have a little bit of difficulty getting hold of that ankle and putting it on a stretch. So start out with making your life a little bit easier with either a belt, a towel, a bit of resistance band, loop it around the ankle. I want to get my bottom knee up towards me so that I can put this bottom hand on it. I want the top knee back as far as I can get it so it's in line with my hip and shoulder. If I can see my kneecap, it's too far forward, we need to take it back. And then from there, we add that stretch on. So I'm pulling that heel up towards my bottom as I do that. If you can reach your ankle, then do so. And then once we get that point where the heel is pulling up towards your bottom, squeeze the bum to push the hip forwards, hold that stretch. You should feel that at the top edge of the thigh, up towards the hip. Keep breathing whilst you hold the stretch. And we're probably looking at holding for about 20 to 30 seconds. Breathing lightly as we go through it. And once you've had about 20 or 30 seconds there, slowly ease off by bringing that knee forwards. And then let that down. Now, we'd obviously do both sides when we're doing this, and I'd probably cycle through 3 sets of about 30-second stretches. If you're struggling with that position, next best position for me is laid on your front. So we'll go back to starting off in side line, loop that band around the ankle, roll over onto your front, get your knees together, squeeze your bum to push your hips into the floor, then pull that heel up toward your bottom to get a good stretch into the front of that thigh. And again, if you can reach the ankle, do so, but not at the cost of popping the bum up into the air. So bum stays down toward the floor. You should feel that through the front of the thigh down to the kneecap. If there is any pain in your knee, ease off a little bit. Again, 20 to 30 seconds, breathing throughout. And over the course of that 20 or 30 seconds, you might find it loosens a bit and you can bring it back in a little bit more towards the bum. We're probably going to hold that, like we were saying before, 3 sets, 20 to 30 seconds. Gently ease out, pushing away at that belt as you do it. Don't let go of the stretch quickly. Okay, so that's the quadriceps stretch. At least that's the sort of easier versions. We're going to take things up now into a hip flexor stretch. So it's a pretty common stretch, a kneeling hip flexor stretch. We're going to pop one foot forwards, the other stays back. So I'm stretching this side that's facing the camera here. I'm going to try and get my knee in line or slightly behind the line of my hip. Okay. From there, I'm going to use my tailbone. I'm going to tuck my tailbone under between my legs, flattening my back. Tummy muscles have to work a little bit as we come forwards, and I'm just leaning my body weight forwards onto this front leg, holding that stretch. Trying to keep my pelvis as square forwards as I can do. The temptation is for it to turn toward the camera here. I'm going to turn it back, make sure I'm square with this front leg. We can even put both hands on there, and my tailbone is driving through between my legs. Bum muscles are working. I'm going to hold that stretch. And we should feel that a little bit in the front of the hip there. Again, 20 to 30 seconds, breathing throughout, both sides, 3 sets. Okay, ease off. Now I'm going to add in a slightly progressive, well, quite progressive stretch of the quadriceps and the hip flexors together here. So this is where the chair comes in. Now, if you're using a sofa, you kind of have to be a little bit careful as you back up towards it. I'm going to stretch the side closest to the camera. I'm going to put my toes on the top of there. The closer the knee comes to the supporting structure, so if it's the chair, the closer that knee gets to the chair there, the bigger the stretch this is going to be. So start off with the knee away a little bit, and then the other leg has to come round in front of us, a little bit like when we're in that hip flexor stretch position. And then we're going to slowly bring ourselves up, keeping your balance, hand on the knee, lift the tummy, squeeze the buttocks so that tailbone goes through underneath us, and we should get a nice big stretch through the front of the thigh there. Breathing throughout. This is a big stretch. Make sure you're breathing, make sure you feel balanced, even if it means having your hands on something to support you. Ease out a little bit, and if you can, get that knee a little bit closer to the chair. Work that foot forwards, bring yourself back up into that stretch. That's a big stretch there. Hold that 20 to 30 seconds. Breathing throughout, that tailbone's pushing through. And like I was saying, we're going to do 3 sets on each side if we can. Now obviously if we're getting pain in the knee, this is too far in advance for you. You can go back to those easier sessions, those easier stretches. Ease out of that one. Lovely. Okay, so we have rolling the thighs. We've given them a bit of a stretch, an easier position, side lying and on your front. We've done a little bit of hip flexor stretching in this position here, bring the hips forward, and then we've added to that by pulling that heel up. Now I've not gone as far as pulling the heel up in this position, I'll let the chair do the work. Now we're going to finish off with a little bit of an abdominal stretch, an area most people don't often stretch, and sometimes if you do a lot of sit-ups, do a lot of crunches and core work, you can get tight here, but not tight in the right way. We want to be able to have flexibility too. So we're going to see how good we are at lengthening through the front of this tummy. The way that we're going to easily do it is lay down on our front. So we'll get rid of the chair and we're going to go for an old exercise. Basically, it's an extension of the lumbar spine. Hands out in front of you, reach up, have a deep breath in. And as you breathe in, you will feel the stretch in the tummy muscles. Breathe out. If you don't feel the stretch, bring the hands a little closer, press up, lock the elbows out, deep breath in. Nice big deep breath. Dogs come to watch as well. He does some good up dog, down dogs as well. Breathing out, and again, bringing a little bit closer. If your lower back feels a bit of a pinch, don't push it. Big deep breath. And as you breathe in, you'll feel the stretch. As you breathe out, just let the tummy sag a little bit and ease out. We'll do one more of those. Nice deep breath. Feel the ribcage flare at the front as you do it. Breathing out, relax down. Okay, we'll probably do 5 or 6 repetitions of that, and that's our stretch complete there. So take your time to get up from here into standing. Maybe have a little bit of a stretch back the other way because we've been extending our spine. We'll just give it a quick flex. And there's a little bit of release work for quadriceps, hip flexors and abdominals. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. See how you get on with it. See you later.